Hello and welcome to another edition of Dub of the Cup. It's been one day since the Matildas fell short against Nigeria, and we're back again just to discuss a few more of the biggest topics from today in the Matildas as well. Emily Gielnik, thank you for joining us. How are you?
I've been better, not going to lie. After last night it was a bit tough, but here we are.
No, fair enough. And Pellizzeri joining us as always. Teo, how are you?
Well, what an interesting day. I am good, Pokuah, but we've got the Keira Walsh news and England to get to, but we need to start with the Matildas because the big breaking news of the evening is that at 1 p.m. Australian Eastern Standard Time tomorrow, Sam Kerr will face the media. Sam Kerr and Ellie Carpenter will do the press conference tomorrow. We discussed yesterday on Dub at the Cup M whether or not Sam Kerr should get out in front of all the speculation and all the chat. It looks like she's going to. What do you think we can expect when Sam Kerr faces the media?
Oh gosh, this could go one or two ways, but I mean, knowing Sam, I think she's just going to put it on a platter. Just say, look, this is the deal, this is what I know, and this is what's going to happen. And it could be, she could just get to the press conference and say, I don't know. And when I do, I'll tell you. I don't know what to say, but look, her and Ellie, it's going to be a joy to watch, to be honest. I'm interested to see what they have to say.
Sam Kerr, Pokuah, is it two players because Sam Kerr might just make a statement, no questions, or do you think Sam Kerr will take questions tomorrow?
I think Sam Kerr will take questions. Yeah. She's a great leader for this team, and I think it would be, she wouldn't put her. I feel that she might have put herself up because if we get through the questions now ahead of before the game, then we can focus on getting everybody on board and getting focused for that game against Canada, because it's not just going to take those 11 players on the field and the players on the bench, it's going to take the crowd as well. So if you handle those questions now and get in front of it, I think you're able to control a little bit better.
I agree. I actually think she's trying to take a hit. Now that I think about it, I think she's trying to take a hit for the team, so then all the focus and the eyes can be on the Matildas come match day.
Now, there's a great Kylian Mbappe quote tweet which became a meme, which is, I will be there no matter what. So at 1:30 tomorrow, are we going to be hitting publish on a quote graphic, Sam Kerr on Matildas versus Canada at Amy Park, I will be there no matter what?
I hope so.
She's definitely going to be there no matter what, that's for sure. But in what circumstance, we don't know.
All right. Well, we'll wait and see what happens with that. Sam Kerr's actual deployment in the game. Now, tomorrow we might get answers, but we were debating last night, do you start Sam Kerr? Does she come off the bench? There is a bit of game theory here, though, around if you have to sub Sam Kerr on and it goes badly, you have to burn another sub to take her off. I'm starting to lean towards the idea of starting Sam Kerr for that reason. Pokuah, am I barking up the wrong tree?
I think you might be, Terry, because
I agree.
Because I think if she comes on, if she comes on with the burst, that tactically makes a really big shift for Canada, and they have to switch their focus. But if Canada find out an hour and a half before that Sam Kerr's starting, I think they're will be a little bit more comfortable because they will know her limitations and get to play around with it. But if she comes on and the rest of the attackers are in really good form as well, then that's another challenge for them. And then if there's more of the Matildas to get through that game.
I still believe Sam won't take the risk unless she has to for the team. But also, like we've talked about, we've got a lot of fresh, ready-to-go substitutes. So hopefully we see more game time for those subs.
We will get into that right now, I reckon. It was on our list of talking points to hit. Unused players so far in the tournament. Nigeria used their subs to bring on fresh legs so effectively. Australia is yet to use Charlie Grant, yet to use Claire Wheeler in this tournament. Is now the time that in Game 3, those players can actually expect to get used off the bench.
More than ever. I've heard someone say before, you got to throw the kitchen sink at it. Look, Charlie's got great pace. Obviously, she's been a fullback before in Ellie Carpenter's position. I can't see Ellie Carpenter leaving the field. We've got to have her on there. So you've got Tamika Yallop, you've got Charlie Grant, you've got Claire Wheeler, and Chidiak, who can obviously make a difference. Like, if you don't play these players, they lose confidence. Then I think they all of a sudden believe that the coach maybe doesn't have belief in them. I'm not too sure, but they need minutes, they need time, they need to build into the game, and it needs to be more than a couple of minutes. But they're probably dying to get out there, I can guarantee.
But I want to pick up on something. When you say that Ellie Carpenter can't leave the field, isn't that exactly the problem? That Kyra Cooney-Cross couldn't leave the field, thus Claire Wheeler doesn't come on. If Ellie Carpenter and Steph Catley can't leave the field, that's why we're not seeing Charlie Grant. So at some point, does the seniority of those players have to be challenged by the purity of fresh legs?
I agree to a point. However, there's only one Ellie and there's only one Steph, and unfortunately, they're the best. I mean, fortunately for us, they are the best. But I see your point. Like you do need good backups, But for me, they're irreplaceable. They just add so much value, but it's not to discredit any of the other players that can step in. I still think those girls can step in and do a job if need be. But at the end of the day, Steph Catley and Ellie Carpenter are our two big players, and they're the ones that I would back.
Pokuah, one tactical switch we were discussing is, could it be a case of Steph Catley steps into centre-back, and if we want the run of Charlie Grant down either the left or the right side, it's Catley going into the middle that facilitates that?
No, definitely, because we know that Steph Catley is capable of playing in that role, and she's quite composed, and she's also a great passer of the ball. So I also wonder if in the case of Charlie Grant and getting her on the field, could it be a case of playing Ellie Carpenter a little bit higher, maybe even as a winger, because we know how explosive she is with her attack, like with her speed and everything. So playing Charlie, defensively could be an option. And also Claire Wheeler, it's such an interesting case about Claire Wheeler, because for so long we looked at her like, oh, she's going to be the future of this Matildas midfield. She's such an intelligent player for the players so young. I'd love to see her more, because I think she plays a little bit differently to the midfielders we have at the moment, and she'll provide a different option. Cara Cooney-Cross had quite a good game, and she was disciplined, but we need Claire Wheeler. We need to try these options, and especially in this game, you don't want to go out of this tournament and not tried all the options you have.
Well, Vince Rigari wrote a pretty scathing critique of the World Cup so far and held Tony Gustafsson to his own words on it takes 23 and 23. Well, we've used 14, and 4 of them weren't available the other night. That, to be fair, has been caused by injuries and bad luck, and we can only play with the players we've got. But there was still 19, and we still haven't seen a few of them. How would those players also be feeling? They get sent for warm-ups. We see them in the stadium running those sidelines. I mean, you've been in that position yourself. Mentally, do you know when you're not going to get used, or is there always that ability as a pro athlete to get yourself game ready, regardless of how unlikely it may seem?
I mean, look, as a substitute, it's extremely hard. You make yourself game ready no matter what. You're just in the mindset, whether I go on or not. It's for the team, but you're definitely prepared. It's a lot of letdown running up and down that sideline, got the feeling. But at the end of the day, you got a gut feeling whether you're going on or not. I just hope that he instills some confidence in those players. I know he values a lot of those players. I know he values Claire Wheeler. I know that Steph Catley could do a job in the centre-back if need be, and he backs Charlie Grant. We've got so many good options, and I just hope to see some of those options utilised this next match.
Sorry, Em. Pokuah, it would be a scandal if Charlie Grant spent a gap here replacing Ellie Carpenter and didn't actually get to play in the World Cup.
No, it certainly would be. And I think she has earned the right to be given the chance to show herself on the biggest stage, because she did a really good job. If we were talking about, Charlie Grant is fantastic, and Tony Gustafsson was saying all these things about Charlie Grant, well, in the biggest moment, you need to trust her, because you've given her the game time and the experience in this squad, in this system. Use her and put some belief in her, because she can do a job, and she has done it before.
She definitely has a work rate. What I will say on that, if she's playing out of position, she might not trust herself, and Tony might panic in regards to does she tactically know where and when she needs to be from a defending point of view, because attacking-wise, she's phenomenal. Like, she's got a work rate like I've never seen before, and she'll run through a brick wall for this team. So that's my only kind of grey area with that kind of opportunity.
One thing that we tried to touch on last night, but in the emotion of after the game, we largely stuck to the mental side of things and the preparation. But on some real nuts and bolts football, the Matildas created 28 shots, 8 on target, but so many of them were of a low quality. What method does it take to create better quality chances? Because when you take 28 shots and most of them are below 0.01 XG, are you let's take a break here. Do you believe in XG or not? Are you?
Yeah, I mean, I'm not much of a stat girl, but I know I know you can have one team has 50 shots, one team has 1, and the team who had 1 scores and wins a game. So, I'm not massive on stats, but they do play a massive role.
I just wanted to make sure that I wasn't speaking hieroglyphics here.
I do know what you're speaking about, but it's not up my alley.
No, I just, there are some players and some coaches who absolutely hate it when I bring it up. But just at a broader level, how do they create better quality chances and use a better method to create good quality chances?
I think it's the final third. I think giving those players the license to play with freedom, creativity, the Caitlin Ford, the things that she does that are so special, turning on the ball, through balls. We need runs. We need to be ruthless. I think come Monday night, we need a mentality that we flick a switch and we are it's almost like we're unleashing the hounds, like a license to be the most creative, phenomenal player that you've tried to be your whole entire career. It all comes down to this one match. So, yeah, I just think the freedom, the creativity, the through passes, like, I know for sure that we've practiced a lot of breaking the lines, and I would just want to see more and more of that. And our biggest threat 100% is a counter-attack. So we need to throw everything at it.
I was going to say that in the game last night, I thought after about 20 minutes when we started to really get into the game, Emily Van Egmond had been picking up some really good positions, and she was getting to the side and helping out and kind of forcing the Nigerian defence to really shift. And I want to see more of that. I want to see the number 10 get into those kinds of positions and create overloads on sides, so then we have more options because it frees up a lot of space on the other side. And I think at times with those long balls, we kind of negate the great positions that some of our number 10s will take up because we're not looking at that kind of option, and that is an option I think we maybe should look at a little bit more.
I think I'd also like to see the Matildas pass them to death a little bit more. Just higher, statistical possession, if you like. But just, get them moving, get them working, and just create opportunities, find the gaps, be patient, but play with speed. So I'd like to see a bit more possession-based, but clinical, sharp, moving the ball kind of possession.
Just a lot more trust in each other because we've seen them do this before, and they can do it. It's just I feel like sometimes we get a little bit too comfortable with the long ball because it can work. Because when you've got Sam Kerr up there and you send the long ball forward and it works, you stick to that sometimes. But sometimes you've got to go to the plan B because that's what these games require.
Is it the heightened level of emotion of a big crowd and the expectation that creates that level of urgency from minute one, and being patient becomes that much more difficult?
It is hard. When the crowd is and the volume is up and the adrenaline, you do one fast thing and you just hear the roof lift, and then it makes you want to go even quicker. But it's got to be a game awareness situation. Like, you got to know when to put your foot on the ball. You got to know when to speed it up, and you got to know when to break the line and go forward. So it just comes down to a game awareness for me.
That's the football side of things. I want to go back to the mental side. What was the first training session like in 2019 after the Italy game? What do you think the team will have worked on? They've done recovery today. When they get back out on the training track, do you think it is business as usual, or is there something specific that they will try to work on in the training session?
Personal preference, I think, more than anything. For me, I'm a big one on morale. Keep it high, get around each other, nothing negative, all positive. Not to say that you can't highlight the negatives, because there was some. At the end of the day, we didn't win. However, they need to get around each other, go back to the basics, the simple stuff, get a touch on the ball. Like, I'm a real old school kind of player. Get a feel for the ball, get it moving, short and sharp, creativity back in training, and, just something so simple like, the box game where you just got two defenders in and you just zipping the ball around, get the girls laughing again, get the morale high, and then back to the drawing board for those 3 days leading into match day.
One thing I was told about Chloe Lagazzo's influence on Western United is that she was impeccable at keeping dressing room and training standards high, and wouldn't let anyone step out of line, and made sure that people always did the right thing. Without Chloe in the squad, who are the players that keep those standards high so that no one's dropping their eyes and no one's dropping their bundle?
Yeah, I can tell you right now it's Ellie Carpenter for sure. Like I talked about the other night, her mannerisms on the field, trying to lift everyone up. Yeah, I mean, I'm not just trying to say like we should keep it lighthearted. There needs to be a level of standards, and the girls will be pushing out because they know it's do or die this next match. But it's a fine balance of a bit of laughter, a bit of banter, but there's definitely no dropping of the levels. The expectations are here, and that's a non-negotiable always, no matter the drill. But there just needs to be a little bit of fun in there.
Now, they're not coming for us. If you're listening to the podcast, Queensland's finest and also the fire service are tending to something. Hopefully it's not affecting the audio quality too much. Pokuah, what do you think the Matildas need to work on? I mean, we've asked Emily about the patience in the build-up and not resorting to the long ball too quickly. Anything else that you would like to see, other than perhaps the thing that you, I, and a lot of other media call for, which is Alex Chidiac?
That's a big thing though, because she provides something incredibly different, because she's always wanted to drive forward. And when we saw her at Melbourne Victory, when we last saw her in the A-Leagues, she was so good at taking on players and going forward and driving and pushing the pace and pushing the tempo. I think sometimes we need to lift the tempo. It gets a bit in a lull, and we get a little bit too comfortable and we knock it side to side. We need to have a little bit more drive. I want to see Vine is probably going to start. I want to see her drive and cut inside as well. That's the kind of things that will get us, putting the Canadian defence questioning, what should we do? Should I step here? Should I step there? We need to give them different looks. And the moment we do that, it will free up a lot more things. It'll free up a lot of space for Caitlin Ford to provide some really great moments.
All right, I want to talk about some coaching things. When he came on Dub Zone back in November, Tony Gustafsson mentioned that Jens Fellstrom does a lot of one-to-one coaching with the group. So in a Matildas training session, how much of the messaging is filtered entirely through Tony Gustafsson? How much of it comes from Mel Andretta? How much of it comes from Fellstrom? And is it one-to-one? Is it talking to the defenders, midfielders, attackers as a unit? Take us inside a training session with how the messaging gets across, because some players want as many instructions as possible and others just want simplicity.
Yeah, look, all the coaching staff, they play a role. It depends what mood Tony's at the moment. 1 week it might be a lot of the focus is he might take a step back and just let the coaches take control. I will say in terms of Jens, he's a great mentor. He's a one-on-one guy. What he will do is he might speak to a back four. He might speak to you one-on-one, work on a drill. And then you've got Mel. She might take drills here and there, mainly kind of like the warm-up, a bit of passing and stuff, but the main, the large quantity of the coaching really does come from Tony. But yeah, like you said, they've all got their individual roles, and Jens, he plays a part. I think they all play a part, but ultimately, at the end of the day, it's Tony's decision for everything, and the only person I kind of see in the ear of Tony helping with instruction is what Jens see from afar.
How did you like to be coached? A lot or a little?
Oh, that is a difficult question. Yeah, that's a tough one. A lot if it's constructive. A little if it's not. So that's my answer. Yeah.
And would you say for the majority of the group that some players need diagrams, some players love to listen, some players love to read, and there's a lot of studies now on what the best way to educate is. What's the balance of this group? Is it something that if the team meeting is 5 or 6 minutes, nice and sharp, a couple of video clips or diagrams, that works, or is it more verbal instruction out on the pitch and actually getting to walk the drill? Like what's generally the breakdown of how the team does it at the moment?
Everything that you just said, we have the biggest mix of all of that. So we get kind of the best of everything. Look, if you do video for too long, we're like young kids. You lose us 10, 15 minutes in. So Tony has to be smart there in how long he's keeping us. We do some walkthroughs. A lot of it's visual. For me, I'm a real visual person. I like to see it in film, go out on the pitch, do it, and then I like to see it back on film. And I think I would say I can speak on probably most of the players. That's probably how they prefer it as well, because you get to see what you're planning to do, whether you execute or not, and then back to the drawing board.
Just as a little tangent, when Jill Roord said during the Euros last year that Mark Parsons' team meetings were too long, and of course Mark Parsons then lost his job with the Netherlands after that tournament, could you relate to the idea of a coach just overloading the players with too much? Because I wonder, off the back of a challenging defeat, is it a real balancing act not to give too much feedback so that the players can stick to the big picture messages that you established at the beginning of the tournament?
Absolutely. It's a hard task. Like if you've got a game coming up in a week, you don't want to filter everything bit by bit, but you also don't want to throw it at the last. So you've got to kind of just pick your moments to put it in there as a coaching staff, because it's a crash course. If you put it all in one for start of the week, like you've lost everyone. You've got to remember we've got an attention span, and we're already, drained from just training, physical, eating, sleep. Like we've got a million things to think about. So, we just want a little bit here and a little bit there. And before the game, we want all the important information. But if it's overloaded, it's gone. And at the end of the day, it's common sense as well. Like you've got to do your homework. You can't just rely on the film. It's about player mentality. As a professional, you should have done most of your homework as well.
Pokuah, put your Canada hat on. What do you want to know the most about from some of Canada's key players? Like, the floor is yours. Who do you think we've got to stop, and who do you want to quiz Emily about on the Canadian team?
Jessie Fleming, you've got to stop her. She is, obviously she didn't play the first game against Nigeria, but she is so focal to everything that Canada do. When they're playing well, she's playing well. And I think that if we can shut her down, I think we go a long way in winning that game. I think Lawrence as well at the back, I don't think she's had particularly the best tournament so far. I think it's been difficult.
Been a bit quiet.
Yeah, been difficult for her at times. So if we can keep her in that sort of form as well, I think that we, do a really good job at getting the 3 points. But for us, I think the Canada side is really important. Obviously, they're going forward. They're so good. They haven't scored as much as I think they would have liked to, but defensively they've been so sound. And it'll be a real challenge for us to break that defense down. And we need to be really smart about it, because if we're obviously not going to break them down, we're going to be relying on those set pieces again. And we didn't turn out particularly well. We only scored 1 goal off a set piece and from a lot of attempts as well. So the defense from Canada, if we can, try trick them as much as possible, maybe we get a goal in the back of the net. But Jessie Fleming, she is the star of that Canadian show, and if we shut her down, I think we go a long way.
Yeah. No, I agree. I think previous experience playing Canada, diligent in their formation, their structure, their defensive ability. What I will give them, they're calm and they're patient and they wait for their moments. And then on the backside of that, we are a pressing team, and if we don't press well, we'll get exposed because they're all so smart. They'll pick the pockets, they'll chip us in the pockets, and they've done that previously. So we have to do our homework. It's a necessity.
Do you think that the previous games against Canada, do they come into a factor? Like, do they affect mentally the players? Are they thinking about those past results because they aren't too far in the past, and they should still be relevant to this game?
Yeah, definitely. He's for sure going to show them. I think because it's the most recent game, it is the one to show. They probably have majority of the same players and same with the national team. So it's a good game to go back on. But look, it's a learning curve, and I definitely think it wasn't our best game. So it's not to shy away from it to make us feel any worse or incapable. Yep. It's definitely just to show what we can do better, how we can nullify the mistakes, and how we can run over the top of them this time around.
Are they a vocal team? Are there a lot of talkers in that Canada team, or do they have designated leaders that tend to do most of the on-field general marshalling of their players?
Yeah, I feel like, a couple of the players have played with Sinclair before. I heard she's quite vocal. Obviously an experienced captain, whether she plays or not, they had a change here in the second game. So I would assume that she's more of their vocal one. But to be honest, when I'm out there, I'm hearing white noise. So I don't know who's talking because I'm breathing.
No, true. And I doubt they'll be able to hear too much on Amy Park because when that venue gets loud, it gets super loud. Pokuah, any other thoughts on Canada or any other questions for Em about the Matildas or Canada before we move on to today's action?
No, not necessarily. I think that the Canada game is obviously that game. The previous games we've had against them are obviously a really major factor. Does Tony go through everything first? Like, how does he go typically dissect the information? Are you looking at just one player, or are you looking at the certain structures? What's the go around with that?
Certain structures, but I think he'll go back to that game and he'll analyse what we did well and where we can hurt them. Because I think if you go like, how can they not hurt us? Like, of course you have to focus on that, but it can't be the entirety of your focus. Yeah. It's about how are we going to hurt Canada, how are we going to damage them, and how are we going to get 3 points from this game. Whether it's ugly or whether it's pretty football, it's how can we do better than what we did against them last time. But yeah, like I absolutely know we weren't in the best form of our life when we played Canada last time, which is what excites me because we're about to play them now, and I think we're in much better shape.
Well, fascinating. It's only a few days away. All right, let's move on to England because the player that set the world record transfer fee, Keira Walsh, went down. All the lip readers saw her say, "I've done my knee." She was carried off on a stretcher, and it is a suspected, worst case scenario, potential ACL. Of course, England having already lost Beth Mead and Leah Williamson for this tournament. What was your reaction when you saw this happen in the game?
It's goosebumps. It's really, really sad, to be honest. When a player goes down and they react the way they do instantly. She didn't wait, 10, 15 seconds. As soon as she went down, smacking the ground, she knows she's done something. So it's a massive loss for England, for Serena, for the teammates, and once again for her, most importantly. I'm praying it's nothing serious, but yeah, I feel really, really sad for her right now.
If it is the worst case scenario, if it is an ACL, there's so much more science, there's so much more literature, there's more undertaking and more research. Do you feel as though your needs as a professional footballer are being met, that the science is keeping up and that enough is being done? And if not, what could be done?
Yeah, there's always more that could be done. I think the investment in the medical side of things all over the world, in women's football and men's football and just sport in general, everywhere, it needs to be taken to another level. I know they're working hard behind the scenes over the last, decades and decades of research. There's always something new every year, but we need to get to the bottom of it. I don't know if it's achievable, but we just need to put things in place so we can try and prevent these horrific injuries as much as possible. And sadly, we're losing too many players to the game for at least a year at a time. And England have really copped it. They had a couple before the tournament started, and now potentially another one. And it's really sad. Like, we had Ellie Carpenter. We almost missed her for the World Cup, and we're seeing it, in astronomical numbers in football. especially women's football.
How big a factor do you think is the increased number of games, maybe season length, but also the intensity? It's been one of the big takeaways of this World Cup. Are we getting to a point where we might just have to break the mould and say, hey, I know we've all grown up playing football once a week on the weekends, but maybe once every 2 weekends is the way we need to do it. Is it something radical which could be the answer?
Look, I know no footballer is going to put their hand up to play every 2 weeks. That would drive us crazy. Look, I will say the men's league, the men in general, play a lot more games than us. You know, theoretically and genetically and scientifically, they don't do that kind of injury more than what the women's game does. It's hard to put my finger on it, but something needs to be done because it's sad and the stats are just getting far too high.
From a football point of view, question for both of you, but Pokuah, Laura Coombs was the player subbed on for Keira Walsh. What does Sarina Wiegman do now that a player that the English media describe as irreplaceable appears, barring a minor miracle, to potentially be out for the rest of the tournament?
I think that's the right substitution. I think it's the most like for like, and I don't think there is a bigger player for any side in the rest of the tournament that Keira is as big of a loss as Keira Walsh is, because she stabilises that England midfield so much, and it's not even just her on the ball, it's her off the ball, the spaces she occupies. It's phenomenal, and I recommend anybody just watch her off the ball. It's fantastic.
She's unbelievable.
It's fantastic to see. I think that's the substitution that you make. Maybe you bring Jordan Noms on if you want something a little bit more attacking, but Keira occupies such a more defensive space, and Georgia Stanway is typically the more progressive of that midfield, and Ella Toone as well. I think maybe that's probably the way to go about it, but it's a really big loss, and it might just be a group effort as opposed to one player making up for the loss of Keira Walsh.
Absolutely, and I think what we're seeing different to the Euros is Sarina's having to really change through the players. Yeah. She's a stickler for the same 11, and she was a stickler for bringing on the exact same subs almost in very similar timely fashion. So what we're seeing now is a lot of variety, a lot of versatility. I mean, look, she's still got a lot of options, but it's a big loss for them.
You mentioned the changes, and this is something we flagged yesterday. So
Rachel Daly.
Rachel Daly started.
Not as a 9. I'm sorry, Rachel. I was hoping you would get up there.
What did you make of that, and what did you make of Lauren James starting and scoring the only goal?
What I will say is, at the end of the day, when you're offered a jersey and you can play on the field, it doesn't matter where you play. But I know Rach was dying for the 9, and if she couldn't play up there as a central striker, she wants to be on the field, as would any player. So I'm sure she's put her hand up. She's had a conversation with Sarina and said, "Put me in, coach. I've had enough on the bench."
She was hovering around the edge of the box on certain plays. I know you looked like she was ready to swing a boot at the ball at any time it fell to her.
All right, so do you think Russo is a bit like Ellen White at the Euros? From a structural point of view, she's undroppable? Or do you think that, given she hasn't scored an international goal since February, that Sarina Wiegman could try Rachel Daly as a forward?
Look, Russo is an unbelievable player, and she's got great stats to show it in this recent WSL. The hard thing is, so is Rachel Daly. It might just be personal preference. Maybe she likes the style more of Russo. It's really, really difficult and cruel to compare players and playing ability because they offer something so much different to each other. So whether she does, I don't see her doing like a 50-50 role. It seems like she's not really into that. You start one and then you start one. It seems like now she's kind of converted back to Rachel Daly being back in the fullback position and sticking with Russo. But yeah, I see what you're saying there. I think she sees Russo more as like the Ellen White.
Lauren Hemp was one of the players moved to the bench. A surprise?
Massive surprise.
Well, why was it? What makes Lauren Hemp a surprise if she has to go to the bench?
For me, I didn't find it a surprise, just because in the first game I thought that Hemp struggled to get past the fullbacks at times. I just thought that Hemp was the most obvious one to drop for Lauren James. But I can also understand, the front three that they had, it provided a little bit of variety, but I thought that Hemp was the most obvious one, but I can understand why it wasn't.
I'm only surprised because Sarina doesn't usually change the front three. That's where my surprise was. Look, at the end of the day, like Lauren Hemp coming off the bench, frightening, a great substitute to have. But look, Lauren James, she took her opportunity today, didn't she? So
she certainly did.
From
She's
your
fantastic.
WSL,
unbelievable.
From your WSL experience, when you say frightening, who is the most difficult of these England players to have to play against?
And it is Lauren James. I can tell you from personal experience playing against her, tough player, unbelievable player. The things that she's just so technically gifted, and a lot of the girls that I play with would, without a shadow of doubt, say she is the toughest player to play against in the WSL. So she's got a bright future ahead of her, obviously following in the footsteps of her brother, but she's creating a name for herself.
the James family have got to come up with an instructional video or something, because one's a great attacker, one's a great defender. You've got to give us the recipe. How do we do this? How do you come up with this?
With that said, England only won 1-0. The goal was early.
Yeah.
They haven't solved their problems by a long shot, have they?
I will say they had a much better game tonight than what they did last game. So in patches, I thought the first 5, 10, 15 minutes, complete domination. And I thought, okay, here's the old England, they're coming back. Then Denmark kind of had a few good patches here and there, and then they looked threatening. So it was an up and down still, but I think we still saw a bit more of the old England, but still not convincing.
All right. Well, we will get into the game, the day's other game, and also look ahead to tomorrow. But on Dub at the Cup, it's time to check in with James Dodd, who has the latest from the England camp.
Well, the crowds have now left the Sydney Football Stadium. I dare say most of them relatively pleased, given that England have made it 2 wins from 2. Anton Toulouse from Sky Sports News in the UK. You've just been with Sarina Wiegman in a press conference. What does she have to say about the performance as a whole?
Pleased with the fight and the resilience are the exact words from her. And I think, look, England knew they were going to have to dig deep today. Denmark, they knew they were going to be deep. They knew they were going to be physical. They knew they were going to play the long ball and test England in a different way. What England didn't expect, obviously, was to lose their most important player. So Wiegman is just absolutely delighted. England defended resolutely, and also, I think, sort of the emotions didn't overcome them as well.
So can you elaborate a little bit more on the condition of Keira Walsh? Obviously, it made such a difference to England the way they played when she went off. Do you have any update on that knee injury?
No, she'll go for a scan. I think the good news is she obviously didn't go straight to hospital, but she will go for a scan. England are going to be very, very cautious. She's not going to play against China in a couple of days. It's going to be try and get her back as quickly as possible. Obviously, after that, I think it's a concern. She is England's most important player. She is the conductor, and the orchestra lost all its rhythm as soon as she went off. They tried to bring Georgia Stanway a bit deeper. Whether that works going forward, I don't know, but it is a massive concern for England because she is arguably England's best player, but certainly England's most important player because she dictates everything England do, both offensively and defensively.
Sarina Wiegman did make a few changes this evening, most notably Lauren James. She comes in 6 minutes in, scores what will be one of the best goals of this tournament. What did you make of the overall team performance given those changes and the tactical tweaks that she made?
Yeah, I mean, again, Sarina Wiegman said she needed to get the balance between attack and defence right, and that's what she feels she did tonight. Playing Rachel Daly at left back as well, coming off a 22-goal season for Aston Villa, and all of a sudden she's back at left back, I think shows that Sarina Wiegman wasn't happy with how England played against Haiti, and she's taken some of the blame of that herself. But I mean, it's just great that now the world can see that Lauren James is a star. Give her space, give her time, let her dictate a game, and she could do exactly what she did tonight. She put the world on notice tonight.
World on notice indeed. England 2 wins from 2. They head to Adelaide next time, Marsh Stadium, the venue where they face China.
Big thanks to James Dodd there for that little bit of insights. Now, Teo, got to get back into talking about some of the games that happened today.
Yeah, just a quick word on South Africa 2, Argentina 2. Leaves neither team in a good position to get out of the group. Em, your thoughts on the game?
Yeah, look, I did put my money on Argentina, didn't I? But, recently playing against South Africa, I was actually really impressed with them. I thought they were clinical. I was really impressed by their technical ability. I think they've developed since the last time I came up against them. I really like the way they whip balls in, through balls on a platter, convincing runs, and, they looked like they really wanted it out there. So, yeah, I was actually gunning for them more than Argentina in the middle of the match.
And they've led in both games, but they have 1 point to show for it.
No, absolutely. I couldn't believe that they didn't get the win today because they had so many great opportunities that didn't end up in the back of the net. It must be a very frustrating tournament, but it's such an achievement for South African football because they've taken a massive step. The coaching staff that they have right now, they really believe in this squad. They have incredibly talented players, and you can only imagine how much further South African football can go.
Let's get into tomorrow's games because the reason that both these teams, South Africa and Argentina, are now not in a great place is because Italy and Sweden play each other. 5:30 p.m. in Wellington, that's Australian Eastern Standard Time. Gee, they can take control of the group here, one or the other with a win. Emily, do you think Italy are any chance of upsetting the Swedes?
I mean, look, I like an underdog, but I know too many of the Swedish players. I know what the Swedish are about. Played against them a handful of times. I know that we also did in the World Cup in the opener lose to Italy. However, I think the Swedes just will have too much dominance in that game and put it away.
Which player do you know the best? Who are you hoping for the best performance out of?
Yeah, the centre-back, Amanda Ilestedt, is a good friend of mine.
All right, Pokuah?
I reckon, I think the Swedes are probably going to win that game, but I don't know if Sweden are happy if they win that game or not because at the end of the other side of it, they've either got to face the United States or the Dutch. So I don't really know how happy they are right now.
I can tell you that all the Italians, myself included, want Italy to win the group, so they play in Melbourne, Pokuah. So let's have Italy win.
It'll be a party then.
At 8 p.m, right here behind us at Brisbane Stadium, France versus Brazil. This is one of the best games of the group stage, and we don't know who's going to win this group because Brazil were awesome, France was scratchy. Who do you like?
I mean, my friend Ken Zadali in France got me some tickets to this match, so I'm going for France. Unbelievable player. Look, theoretically after the first game, you're probably going to put your money on Brazil. However, I'm still tipping France. Like they've still got good players. I know they didn't have the best game against us. I heard there was a little bit of jet lag there, a little bit of just flushing out the legs. They were tired. However, we're in tournament mode now, and I've seen them play really, really well. So hopefully they do some damage on the night. But I mean, Brazil. First game, unbelievable.
It's the prettiest goal I've seen in so long.
I think the nation's still in awe. I mean, it's really putting things up there for women's football that, we still got some style. So it was beautiful to watch.
So just quickly then, Ken Zadali and Clara Matteo, is it one or the other, or can they both play on the pitch at the same time?
Yeah, I mean, it's a hard one. New coach, they're all still somewhat getting used to him. I've heard they really like him. Obviously knows his stuff, great CV. When she came on, she made a real impact, Ken Zadali. I mean, I'm biased because she's a mate of mine, but, I think she was too good not to start. Hopefully we could see them both play a part at the same time, but, I mean, I'm favouring Kenza all day, every day. I hope she starts because, she's too good of a playmaker to not have on the pitch.
All right, the firebugs are well and truly out and about tonight. All right, the late game, 10:30 p.m. in Perth, is Panama against Jamaica. Both teams are desperate for a goal. Jamaica, they got a 0-0 draw in their first game, Pokuah, so if they win this, they're in a great position to get through, especially if France and Brazil ends in a draw.
Yes, but unfortunately for them, their star player, Bunny Colvin, is unavailable for this game after getting the second yellow in the first game. So that makes that very difficult. And Panama, it gives them certainly a chance. But I'm gonna back Jamaica. I would love to see.
So am I. We love the underdogs, but I think we're still going with Jamaica.
Yeah.
Em Gielnik, you've been fantastic for us again on Dub at the Cup. And don't forget, we'll have current A-League players, Matildas like Emily Gielnik, former Matildas, and also coaches joining us for the rest of the tournament. Pokuah, where can we find more of KEEPUP's World Cup coverage?
You can catch us on keepup.com.au and can find us on KEEPUP on all the socials, and to find this podcast on anywhere you listen, Spotify, Apple, or Google, wherever you like. And thank you guys for joining me.
Thank you.